Researching administrative law is difficult due to the multiple functions of federal and state agencies. Agencies make rules like legislatures and enforce those rules similar to courts. As a result, administrative law research involves a broad spectrum of materials, including sources like the Code of Federal Regulations, the Federal Register, and specific agency rulings. We will discuss agency rulings in another class, so for now we will discuss the Code of Federal Regulations and the Federal Register. Let's say you have a client that owns a restaurant and wants to make sure that he gives his employees proper breaks and time off for meals. You may choose to begin your research using a secondary source on employment law, or you may look for federal statutes that are on point. Both of these methods will lead you to the relevant regulations. However, if you know that this area is governed by regulations, you may choose to conduct research in the Code of Federal Regulations. In the main search box, enter Employee Break Meal, and then click Search. To locate the Code of Federal Regulations in your results, click on Administrative Codes and Regulations on the left-hand side. To be sure that you are only looking at regulations from the CFR, use the source filter on the left-hand side and select Code of Federal Regulations. Let's look closer at the first regulation listed, 29 CFR 785.19. Meal breaks are defined by this regulation. Underneath the text of the regulation, you'll see the statutory authority or enabling legislation for this regulation. In this case, the agency receives this authority from multiple statutes. History tells you where you can locate the original text of this regulation in the Federal Register. Much like statutory annotations, you can find case law that has interpreted the regulation under the Annotations tab. You can find out if any cases or other sources have cited to this regulation. You can do this by scrolling back up to the top and clicking on Shepherdize this document. Note that you are looking at the cases that cite this regulation. To find other sources, like treatises, use the link on the left for Other Citing Sources. Then limit your results by clicking on Treatises. Now you have a list of secondary sources that cite this regulation. Click on the citation at the top of the page to go back to the original regulation. Because the CFR is arranged by subject, you will always want to check the table of contents to see if nearby regulations are also relevant. Once back at the regulation, click on the Table of Contents tab on the left-hand side. You can see that 29 CFR 785.18 relates to rest, which will help your client determine the required amount of break time he must give his employees. And that's how you research regulations on Lexis Advance.